Hello everybody, I'm here with the YMCA at Virginia Tech with Chef Jud. So Chef Jud, how long have you been cooking for?
Going on 40 years.
40 years, wow. And what is your favorite thing about cooking?
Well, I'm a certified executive chef, and there's only 2,500 of us in the country. So really what that means is after the length that I've been cooking and have been certified in all different types of food service management and nutrition and just cooking and baking and pastry, as well as savory cuisine, we do everything. What I like about it is the craftsmanship. So we do overlap into the artistry world, but we're a craftspeople. We're just like a carpenter or anything else. So, or an engineer, but we're engineering dishes and building textures and flavors and colors and all of that, which never really gets old. And then learning the international cuisine and different pantry items and how to build flavors based on that authenticity are always pretty exciting. So that's what I like
Awesome.
the most.
Sounds good. Well, today we are making chicken pot pie. So Chef Jud, you will take over now.
Okay, well thank you. All right, so what we're going to do is talk about how to make a European dough. It's called 1, 2, 3. Very simple. It's just water, which I like to keep it cold. So you can either weigh your water in advance. I use a scale, or in this case, we're using water which is cold, butter, and flour. The butter can be at room temperature, somewhat soft. Okay, the way to remember in the order, so we're looking at 1 part water, 2 part butter, 3 parts flour. So in this case, 4 ounces, 8 ounces, 12 ounces. So the easy way for you all to remember this at home is WBF. And the way I was taught is World Boxing Federation. But it's the easy acronym, water, butter, flour. Okay? So let's go ahead and start. So what we're going to do first is put the flour in. That's already been measured. Flour you have to put on a scale, because in a liquid measure, 8 ounces is always 1 cup for liquid measure. Dry measure, 1 cup is not 8 ounces. So always put your dry ingredients on a scale and weigh them to the proper amount that you're looking for. So the butter goes in. So what we're wanting to do is break the butter up with our fingers so that it's encapsulated with the flour. And then we can start kind of mashing it, making them smaller. Now this 1, 2, 3 dough can be used for apple pie. It can be used for desserts of any sort. It can also be used pumpkin pie, so on and so forth. And then in the savory world, like we're making today for chicken pot pie, same dough. Okay, as you can see here, we're breaking the butter up, and we're kind of shooting for maybe the size of a pea or something along that size. And the reason why we want to get them smaller, so that when we start kneading the dough, we have kind of a laminated effect where it's marbled in throughout the whole dough, and it doesn't have hot spots with a lot of butter. Okay, once we feel like we've gotten to that point, as you can see how it's kind of getting mealy a little bit? You can see the butter holding its kind of broken in. All right, the water goes in now. Okay, I use the claw method. Take your finger, spin the bowl with one hand, and it's just a way of gently kind of bringing it together. And that way it doesn't stick to your hands and create a massive dough ball. All right, once I've got the water in, at this point in time, I'm gonna start using the heel of my hand and making a fist. You see how quickly I can bring that together? Just like this. And you're kind of on your way. At this point in time, the most critical part of working with this dough is making sure your butter's not too warm, it's not too cold, making sure that your water is cold. And what we're trying to do is protect the amount of butter from being too warm and then melting and then kind of flattening out and not holding its shape. All right? So we don't want to overwork it as well. So what our final destination is here is just to get it all absorbed with the flour, the water, the butter, to where there's nothing left in the pan. Okay, so the next step of chicken pot pie is we need to add our vegetables. So in this case, we've got carrots, about a half a cup, and we'll save the rest for later. Another equal portion of a half a cup of onions, and then celery. The French call these aromatic vegetables, and that's really what they are, aromatic, the smell. The French call that mirepoix. So if we come over to the stove, what we want to do is turn the heat on with about 2 ounces of butter. And what we're shooting for is them to start collapsing and being translucent, and they're sweating within their own juices. We do not want to brown them. As you can hear, the pot is getting hot. Now at this point in time, we want to drop it down very low and just let them take their time. This usually will take somewhere around 10, 12, 15 minutes to where they get soft and tender, and that's the final destination. Okay, so now the next point is showing you where we are with the vegetables being sweated. So they're tender, but not mushy, and the onions are translucent. So at this point, we want to turn the heat to high. We want to add our chicken stock. The chicken stock, you can either use a bouillon in water, you can buy chicken stock, or as you can see, we've made our own, which we've cooked a whole chicken with mirepoix, which is the same thing we talked about before with the onions, carrots, and celery, like a typical chicken noodle soup. So we've got that going on to the side. But again, you can buy chicken broth already in the store or chicken bouillon and water. So we want to add this in like we've done. And the last thing we want to add are going to be the potatoes. We want the potatoes to get soft. And in your recipe, I've included with this video is 1 cup of potatoes. Okay, let's talk about 2 different ways to do the dough. This is not a bad product if you want to buy a pre-made dough, and you would roll that out. I mean, it's already rolled out for you. This is what the product looks like. And we would go ahead and grease the inside of the pie pan and just put this in. It's just that easy, okay? We'll save the second piece for once we have the filling in, which we'll show you what that looks like, and we'll reserve this other piece to go on top. Pretty simple, not a bad product. But if you want to do it homemade, we're going to follow using the 1, 2, 3 dough, and flour our surface, flour both sides lightly, and just work the dough which we just pulled out of the refrigerator. And I usually like the dough to set up and let the butter get cold for at least 20 minutes to 30, but you can leave it in there for 2 or 3 days, and that's perfectly fine as well. You don't have to make everything right before you're ready to use it. Okay? And you can see, here's a technique for you. When you get to a point where the dough starts getting long and kind of hard to flip, you put the rolling pin here, you roll the dough up, and if it starts to stick a little bit right here, just dust it with flour. You can do that, and then you can also flip it over. If you feel any sticky spots on it, just rub the flour on it. And as far as the thickness is concerned, it's kind of chef's choice, but we're probably going about like the purchase product, 1/8 of an inch or so. Alright, now the pie pan, we'll do this same technique again. We'll roll the dough up. We'll bring this here, put it down, and voila. That's created how while we're cooking the chicken pot pie filling, we can come back and do the dough, and then we'll go back to finishing up the filling. Okay, so we've added the potatoes in. So we have the chicken stock, we have the mirepoix. The potatoes are now soft. We want to add the other ingredients. So a half a cup of peas. We want to add 2 cups of chicken. I do like to add some poultry seasoning. Poultry seasoning naturally brings out the flavor of chicken, poultry in particular. It's a taste that we use for Thanksgiving. It's one we're familiar with. Okay, so we're going to turn our heat up to a medium high. As you can see, it's starting to look more and more like chicken pot pie. You see that? Okay, we need to bring all of this together. So what we're going to do is make a roux. So the roux is approximately, it's 50% melted butter, 50% flour. So I'm going to show you what it should look like. And really, in a quick description, it should look like a pancake batter, okay? I don't want it too tight, and I don't want it too watery, or meaning too buttery. Okay, this is going to be our thickening agent. It's also called a roux. It could be a touch wetter than this. This is more of like a wet sand consistency. See that? Okay. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and tighten this up. The word tightening it up meaning thickening it up. As you can see how it's watery? All we need to do is add a spoonful of this in here. We're going to stir it. And see how quickly, see how now it's starting to get a shine to it. This should look like a stew, because that's essentially what we're making. Chicken pot pie is a meat pie. Okay, see how it's there? Very good. See how it's transformed the thickness right here? Okay, we're going to let this cook on a low flame for about 3 or 4 minutes, just to final thickening. We do want to season it with salt, pepper. We do want to taste it before we go to the next step. Thank you. Okay, so as you can see, we've got our 9.5-inch deep dish. This is a deep dish, not your normal. We have our 1, 2, 3 dough in there. The recipe that we made filled it up nicely. You can see the carrots. You can see the peas sticking out. We have some leftover of the 1, 2, 3 dough. You see how I'm rolling it out with a rolling pin? That's great. And then we're going to just push that down. And then we can use a technique of pinching the dough using our fingers all the way around. As you can see what we've done. Spin it, boom, 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 boom. Sound effects and all. You can decorate this however you want. It's not that critical that it looks like it's going in a magazine. It's entirely up to you. Take a knife, trim the excess. Like this. Some folks might prefer to use a fork as another technique, and you could come in and go all the way around. And it's just a way of sealing it so that when it bakes, it holds everything in. Okay? Egg wash. So we're going to take 1 egg and 2 tablespoons of water, mix them, and we're going to brush the top. And what that's going to do is it's going to help to facilitate a quick golden brown color on top. Puts a little crust on it. A lot of times we do this for bakery items, breads, so on and so forth. Using a pastry brush makes short work of this. Last thing I like to do is to put a little hole in the center. This is just to kind of vent out some of the steam that comes out. And voila, this is ready for the oven. It's going to take somewhere in the 25 to 30 minutes to cook at 350 degrees. Enjoy. Thank you all.